I'm Andrew, I'm from Darwin, North Australia, though I'm originally a New Zealander. I'm going to show you how to tie my favourite Christmas Island fly, which I call my Christmas Island T-bar. I tie it in a range of weights. This one's heavily weighted, so it doesn't actually have the T-bar in it, but I still call it a T-bar. It's basically a gotcha apricot sort of coloured, Crazy Charlie variation, but it seems to work pretty well. And so we're going to tie a heavy one for fishing the Paris Flat. When all the fish are schooling, so you've got enough weight to cast into a strong wind and get down quickly. It's on a number 2 Gamakatsu SL12 hook, which are very good, very strong hooks, very hard to straighten. So you start off, you put a single layer of thread all the way to the back, and then once the single layer of thread's to the back, then what you do is you take a short length of pearl crystal flash and a short length of just normal orange, not particularly like hot orange, just a normal orange crystal flash. And so one length of each, you wrap it round the thread like that, and then you just secure that at the end. So it's only 4 strands for the tail, not too much flash. I don't like too much flash in flies. I'm sure it's a good idea, but I like them to look more natural. So just a little bit of flash there, and then we're just going to trim it off at probably about 3/4 of an inch, just to get it trapped. Okay, and then what you do is you wind the crystal flash as a single continuous layer all the way up the fly, but you leave the thread at the back of the fly because the thread is going to form a reinforcing rib, so that the crystal flash doesn't all unwind when you start catching fish on it. So you basically just wind it just side by side all the way to the front. You'll get about 2 flies out of 1 strand of crystal flash. And it was funny, like on the last trip, every night I was working on developing this fly, because these were the only really strong hooks I had. It was so much fun because your whole trip was all about, developing something that worked really well. So I'm winding there quite, see how wide those ribs are? Just wind it like that. And so what that does is that means that all the bits of crystal flash are now nicely trapped under a rib, so they can't
They chew and it doesn't.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and I use this stuff, the Sally Hansen's Hardened Nails. It's like a popular American sort of nail varnish. Epoxy would be even better, but epoxy you'd have to wait for it to dry, whereas this dries pretty quick. So you just put a single layer on the top, layer on the bottom, and then we'll grab an eye. So I like the chartreuse eyes. They're called Real Eyes Plus. They're machined brass eyes with they just look really really pretty. So you put it not too close to the front, so you got ready to tie the wing. Now a lot of people like really flashy flies on Christmas Island. I prefer to have larger, more natural flies, so I don't like flashy stuff in the wing. I just like it to look more like a sort of something natural. Because if it's a big fly, they're going to see it anyway. They don't need to have it looking unnatural. Now I could be wrong on that one, but that's just what I like. So I take just a very small amount of craft fur. It's very easy to overdo the craft fur, and then you end up with a wing that's so stiff. So I'd use half that. It'll end up so stiff if you use too much that it won't really move naturally in the current. So you fold it round like that, and then just wrap it down like that. So here we're doing the last step now, which is the rabbit fur wing. It's like plain tan dyed rabbit fur from a zonka strip, and so we're just going to cut it off like that, and you put your zonka strip down, and then what you're going to do is just going to hold it carefully like that, and you're going to just trim it up so it's really even. Okay, and then you're just going to sit that down over the top of the fly. You're going to catch it in your hand, and then just gently trap it down there so it can't escape, and tie it all off. And just make it build up like a nice thread head. So we'll just put a half hitch just to secure it, and I always like the whip finishing tool.
Okay. See it.
This was owned by my wife's granddad. He was a fly fisherman. So that was quite nice. I never met him, he was dead before I started going out with the wife, but I got all his fly tying gear, so it was quite lucky. And so you just tie a couple of ones there just to make sure it's well off, and then you don't actually need a proper sealant on your head, but I like a sealant as well because it makes it look nice and glossy. So just trim that off there. Put that down, and then you take a little bit of varnish and just put a little bit. Try not to get the varnish in the rabbit fur, because if you get it in the rabbit fur, then it will end up going all hard and yucky. And so I just create a little bit of space there, and there it is, my Christmas Island T-bar. So I'll just turn the side on there. See, so it's quite a nice sort of natural apricot-y looking sort of body, flashy but not overly flashy, and then a really mobile wing. So I developed this fly on my last trip to Christmas Island, where the problem I ran into was the big fish are near the coral, and the coral requires like heavy tippets and strong flies to really apply pressure to the fish, and my lighter hooks, they kept straightening, and so these are the Gamakatsu SL12s, which are very strong, and like on 20-pound tippet they work really well. But the problem of keeping them on the flats right side up is with the small eyes, because you often need really light flies, they keep tipping over. And so I put this wee thing called a T-bar, which is just burnt nylon or monofilament, so when the fly lands, it, you know, lands nice like that and doesn't fall over. Seem to work really well. So for the light ones, these two versions that you're fishing on the bottom of the flat, it just makes the bigger hook sit nicer. With these really light ones here, which you're using on ultra skinny water where you're trying to keep them up in the water column, I don't bother putting it on those because you're not trying to get those on the bottom anyway. But for most of your bone fishing, which is these two variations here, where you want it sitting on the sand and just twitching across the sand, the fly is much more stable like that. And when it comes out of the fish's mouth, this also tends to act like a bit of an anchor, so it comes through the mouth horizontally like that, which means that it tends to catch the fish in the top of the jaw. So yeah, that's my favourite fly.